This episode is more going to be focused around the admin features. We are already done with the roles and permissions side, where we were able to set up in the API dot in at least in the routes some middlewares we could set up where we right now have a super admin middleware available. So any request coming in, let's say which needs to be handled by an admin, can be taken care through that middleware right now. So that's what we are going to focus today, where we're going to set up some endpoints which is very specific to the admin to take care of those things. So let's get started. I'm going to start with doing a couple of things. I'm going to first revert this ecosystem dingo version which we had added that did not work so well for me. So maybe it's time that maybe I'll revert back to the dingo version which we had. So I'm gonna revert it back first thing first, and I'm also seeing that the Laravel permission package I had added in the last episode is missing here. Maybe I'll include that as well, and then maybe let me delete the composer lock as well as the vendor folders. So these are the two things which gets added dynamically whenever you are installing a composer install. So maybe post that, let me install everything again. It should not it's taking a little while because we don't have the lock, so it's trying to update it again. Hopefully this should work. It's generating installed. So that's one change I am doing right now because the ecosystem package did not work so well for me. There were some issues, so I'm reverting that one. So the second change I'm going to do is there was a mistake I made here which exposed these endpoints even when the middleware was not there. I mean, even if the middleware was there, if you're not setting the bearer token, even then it was allowing to access these. I guess that's what's one thing I heard. So maybe to mitigate that, I'm going to add api.auth. I guess that's what I need to add to protect this endpoints. Yeah, so that's pretty much what are the two changes to start with. So that's done. Also maybe let me group some of these things which are very specific to auth within its own group. I guess sign up, login, refresh token, logout. Maybe it's better that I group it under another group which is very specific to auth. So I'm gonna create a group and prefix that with an auth. So that's pretty much what I wanted to do. Then function, just have it pass that API again. So whatever is going to be under auth is going to be under this. So I might just move this one. First one is this one, the API. Maybe those two need even this middleware, so it's better that I completely move it within this and maybe remove these prefix which I had added. And this is now within its own middleware. So one change done. And the next change is that even I want these two guys to be within the auth prefix itself. So I'm adding that as well here. And then I have these two posts. Maybe because I maybe just keep this as sign up and login, and it can be accessed through this auth sign up, auth login, and the rest of things will come through the middleware. So that's a couple of changes just as a cleanup to group it properly. That's what I'm going to do. And now let's check whether all of these which I had is working already. So I had cleared all the tables while I was testing. So let me start with maybe doing PHP artisan migrate. I'm going to again migrate the tables and do a fresh migration. That means it will drop all of the existing tables and then I do a seed of all the values. So that's what I'm going to do. So if there was nothing, it's just going to migrate everything. So that's done. So if I refresh now, you can see all of the data which I had created in the last episode is back. So it's randomly creating some of these. So we know that some of the users are admin, some are customers, some are store customers, and all of that. Mostly we had the customer and the store owner created. So I'm going to use one of these IDs to test this. So I'm going to go back to my Postman. I have created some a collection right now so that it's easy to manage. This is something I had always been using Postman for a while, but never realized, or at least I did not really focus on making effective use of it. So but then I right now find it very easy to create a documentation out of all the API endpoints which I have created. So I already have lots of endpoints created when I was actually implementing it for before the tutorial. So these are already available. So but I'm just going to focus on today on the auth side as well as the admin users part, and maybe on the profiles today. So that's my core focus is going to be. So to start with, let's go to the login side. I'm going to replace the test ID which I had created. This is one seeder I have right now. If I send it, it's not started, so I need to again start the server. So it's a simple command to start your server. That's done. Now maybe if I log in now, let me keep terminal ready. So now if I start, it's going to send a token back. So this is what I'm going to do. And within the collection of Postman, I have done something. I have kept the base stores API where I have a bearer token, which is going to get inherited for each and every endpoint which needs it. So I'm just keeping that saved. So login is working. I had the refresh token also. That's also working right now. These were some of the things which we had implemented in the last episode. So these refresh token is what I'm going to now save, because my token is already refreshed with the new one. I was just testing these endpoints before we start. So that's also working. And sign up is something we had implemented in the last episode, where it was creating a basic sign up for our for usage. I think it was under this one. So we already had it. Sign up. Then let's proceed with creating more endpoints for today. So to start with, we don't have any code which was allowing us to let's maybe start with the other part, which is create a profile page maybe. So this user is just now signed in, or at least the sign up is happening very lazily, where he's just as accepting a username and email and a password. Instead, let's start with creating a profile page for him, so that he can enter more details. For that, I'm going to create now an endpoint, at least a resource which is going to have a user profile model. I'm just going to start with that. So let's create a PHP artisan make model. I'm going to call it user model, user profile as the model, and I am going to create all the resources needed for it. Let's say a controller, and then the factory, the migrations and everything needed for this to start working. So even the seeder will be created for that. So this is my user profile, and I also need the API endpoints. So this is how it's going to create a model and all the dependent controllers and everything. So if I execute it, it's going to create model, factory, migration, seeder, request needed, controller. I might not use everything which is needed, like a policy and everything. I'm not going to use. I'm definitely going to use the controller, seeder, migration, factory, and the model. So that's what I'm going to do. So it's already created. You can see I have all the structure needed for this to start with. So as a first step itself, whatever I can do is I can go and include an endpoint for this. So for that, because this is going to be used by everyone, so it can come under the auth api.auth. So that's where I'm going to keep it. So profile, this is going to be a profile page. So either I can include it as a resource, but I don't need it, at least for this, because the profile is going to be accessed through the token itself. So that for that reason, I'm going to start by creating an endpoint which is going to get the basic fetch for a profile. So even before that, let's do one thing. Before this works, I want to show, because we were halfway with the user controller right now. At least in the auth user admin, I had this function where it was giving all the roles and permissions of all the users in the system. So this is more of an admin feature. Let's say if I go to my admin users, this is what that endpoint is. So if I execute it, it's going to return all of the users with all the roles and permissions. So I don't need so much of details, at least. So maybe I'll just keep it to the bare minimum, which is to have all the users with the roles maybe. So that's what I'm going to do. So this is returning now the email, password and everything. So maybe we can start with modifying this part where I might, because right now I'm just dumping everything back to the user, which is coming back from the database. So instead, I'm going to start by transforming this users into a representable format. So for that, I'm going to start creating again a transformer for that. So let me do that first. So that's my index. I'm going to start with creating something called as a user. So I can maybe within the app itself, I can create a folder called transformers. And then within that, I'm going to create a function or a class called user transformer. So Dingo is already giving us the fractal transformers integrated with it, so we don't need to separately use it. So I can right away create a transformer. So it's going to be a PHP file, and then I can create a class called user transformer, which is going to extend transformer abstract. I'm hoping transformer abstract. So that's coming from League Fractal Transformer Abstract. So this will help us create a transformer. So basically, it is going to have a function, and that function is going to say transform my data. So input for us right now is the user input, $user, and then output is going to be something which we are going to return back. Like right now, let's say if I keep it empty, it's going to give an empty array. But we are interested in returning a data right now. So maybe I can start with, let's say, returning the ID of the users. So if the user is passed here, I can access the ID of the user right away. So maybe let's test this to start with. So I'm going to change the controller right now, the admin user controller. Instead of this users, I'm going to return all the transformed element, and we are not directly going to send back. So maybe one more thing I need to take care is that the good part about transformer is that you can pass the type that you need to return. So it instead that JSON is going to return the specific type which is needed. So that's how it will be consumed. So then we can start with modifying this, because like I said, Dingo is already giving us the transformers needed. So all that I need to do is to call the collection right now and pass the users, and then I need to point to the right transformer, because this is going to accept a user object. So that's why each item is going to accept that. So it's going to right now transform it, and then maybe set a status code. Set status code of 200. I guess that'll be enough. Maybe format it a little. That's it. And now let's see what is going to be returned. Transformer is not found. So class user transformer not found. Don't have a return. That's a problem. Now it should work, hopefully. Yep, so it's returning silly mistakes, which leads to anyway, it's good that at least you know what goes wrong. So I can keep extending this one, so it can have now email, so that's going to be user email. Then we have a username, so we were returning it as name earlier, so I can now call it as username itself. So that's one good part of transformation. You can modify the way you want it. So I think these are the fields which are there, and we are going to extend this even further once we have the profiles available. So now I think it should return more data. Like you can see ID, email, and username, 3 params are returned. So let's keep continuing and fixing the other part which we were looking at, which is to include the profiles right now. So we had the profile created. If we go to the model, you have a user profile, but it's not yet connected with the user object. So idea is that I am going to have the user having a one-to-one relationship with the user profile. So for that, we need to modify our database, the migration part, and let's go to the migration. And I'm going to include some more parameters needed for extending this. ID, I'm going to have some more fields, tiny text of first name maybe. Then I can have the last name as well, tiny text. Then maybe I can include a gender field, which can be an enum, which we can keep extending if needed. So I'm going to keep it enum. I'm going to call it gender, and I'm going to pass some params, allowed ones, which can be male, female, maybe trans person, and maybe include some others as well, so that it expands the, but you can keep expanding based on your needs. And so that's my enum for, and maybe one more field to active, keep the user active or not, which is going, I'm going to maybe track it with my user profile field. So I'm going to say active, and that's my boolean. So these are some of the, maybe do I need a default? I guess that's not needed. Otherwise you can set always a default value if you want, but I'm planning to send it all the time. So this is my user profile, but then it's not yet connected with my user. So for that we need to have a foreign key defined. I'm going to have that foreign ID defined, which is going to be user ID, and this is going to be constrained on the users table. And also I need to set some policies on what should happen in cascade update and delete. So I'm gonna on delete and update what should happen, which I'm interested in keeping that as cascade update and delete, so that whenever the user is or user profile is deleted, it also deletes the user as well. So that's the basic constraints I'm setting. So this is good enough to have this is the first part of it, where we have created the dependency. Now the same has to be propagated back to the models. So I have a user model and a user profile model. So for the user model, the first thing is that I need to again create a function, and I'm gonna say, so this is my user, so I'm gonna say user profile is going to have a one-to-one relationship with the user. So I'm just saying this user has one user profile, so that's the relationship I'm setting. So this will make our querying way easier. So that's the first part. Always never forget to return this, otherwise you're not going to see any result. So that's also done. So the reverse has to happen in the user profile, where I can say function, this is my user profile, so I have returning a user. So return $this, it belongs to, that means it's a reverse relationship, so I can say it belongs to user. So that's a reverse one, belongs to, okay. So that's the relationship which we have set. So this should work fine. So let's go back. So the relationship is set. As soon as you now migrate, you will see one more table available. But then before that, let's do some modifications to the factories, so that the proper migration happens. So if we go to user factory, right now I have these things created. Similarly, for user profile factory, I need to pass some values which is needed, like first name. So first name is going to be from, I'm going to use again faker. So faker dot first name, then last name, that's my last name. And again, if you are adding gender, I can pick it from the faker. Again, I can use faker to pick up some random values for that. So I'm going to use faker dot random elements. Why? Okay. Random element from an array. Maybe I'm going to pass the same array which we had created on the other side, which was in the migration, I guess. So let me go back to the migration. I'm going to use the same, so that there is no value which is outside the whatever scope is defined. And random element, why is it not allowing? Okay, it's a semicolon. And finally, active can be again some random faker value. So I'm gonna say faker boolean, so it just picks up some random boolean. So that's the four params which I need for these are the definition for my factory. And then if I come back to the seeders, there will be one seeder for event profile, but I'm not going to use that, but instead I'm going to use the user seeder, because I need to associate the user with user profile. So whenever this creation is happening, I need to also do that. So for that, I'm going to assign, or at least attach. So I can just say has. So again, because we have set up relationship there, it is going to create user profile factory. Using that factory, I'm going to create one of that. So I'm just going to create one for each user. So this is, I just need one, because it's going to loop through and find out. Even let's say if I'm saying user.factory.count, it's going to only it's going to associate the users over here. So you'll see that getting created whenever this is happening. So similarly, I just need to point to those users so that we have an equal number of user and user profile mapped correctly. So this is the change I'm doing. And then if I do a refresh, or if I do a reseeding right now, let's do that. PHP artisan migrate fresh, and then if I do a seed, it going to create all of those users again successfully. Let me go back to my table and then do a refresh. You're seeing that user profile is here. It has created 23 users. Similarly, it should have created 23 user profiles mapping to those users. So that's also done. So the next part is that because we already have the user information coming back, at least the user information migrated, I can go back to my admin user profile and modify this user transformer because I have a relationship set up, so I can grab more information from that now. So I can just say $user first user. I can access it through user profile and then say first name. One more thing I can make sure is that, let's say if the user profile is not yet created, this is the case where, let's say if somebody is doing a lazy initialization, so that means he's just signing up but then he does not have a user profile. That in that case we can just guard it like this. So last name, if last name is not there, then unknown. Then I can also say gender, I can say maybe none. If nothing is available, then this is now going to return at least a new set of values. Let's say if I go back to this endpoint again, if I'm going to execute, it's going to show more information about those users, but I think it's going to ask okay. So one thing I just realized is that the token is still valid for those users. How did that happen is a mystery. Let me go back and then go to my API. This is within the prefix, but okay, this has a user super admin profile and the token is still valid. Maybe if I do a log out, let's see what happened. Successfully logged out. I'll come back to the users. Okay, so now okay, that's working then. I don't know, that last ID was still valid for some reason. That's okay, I guess. Let me pick up a new user now and then go back, re-log in. This is again an admin user. Token is created. I'm going to use this token as the token for the overall stores API. Then I can now come back and then do this. So you're seeing that more information like the first name, last name, gender, everything is back. So that's a good part about transforming. There are different ways of transforming. We'll just start with this, but as we progress and get into more complex use cases, then we'll have it extended further. So until then, this is what we have started with. So here you can see we already set up pretty much a good part where you have a user and then you are setting up the direct relationship one-to-one, but then there are more complex scenarios which is going to happen later when we go to the stores and profile. I mean the when you enter stores, brands, product lines, product and all of that. So it's going to be more complex, but then it's not going to be difficult to handle it because Eloquent is very simple to use and you can set up it very easily. So we'll get there as and when we let's progress with this to start with. So we already have the transformers ready. So let's now create some more endpoints for accessing because we already have the user profile available. So let's start by now setting up more endpoints. So this was the only endpoint that we had. We had a get over here where we were fetching everything. So let's move to doing more stuff with these.